Who wants more time? I'd like more time. Would you like more time? Well, unfortunately, we can't create more time just by snapping our fingers. But in this interview with Ted Atchley, he shares some of his top tips and tricks for how to manage your time better so that you can be more effective as a writer and again have more time for life and breathing and all of those fun things. So make sure that you tune in for this episode. It has so much value in it, and he shares so many great thoughts. I am super, super excited for this. And just a quick aside, again, if you hear the word author elevate bandied around, that was my old title for my podcast. Now I just use author culture or Janeen Ippolito, my name. But there's so much value in this, and I cannot wait for you to enjoy it. And now it's time for our What My Book Taught Me feature with Ted Atchley. Ted, thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here. Excited.
Yay! And I'm just going to introduce a little more about you for those of you in the audience who aren't as familiar with Ted. Here is his official bio. F. Ted Atchley III is a writer, gamer, all-around geek, and cat parent who can work a random Star Wars quote into almost any conversation. And if you saw this, if you're on YouTube, you can see we both are bringing our Star Wars game to this episode unintentionally. In addition to being a speculative fiction writer, he's also a professional computer programmer. Whether it's words or code, he's always writing. His goal is to entertain with fantastic tales that hold deeper truths. His debut science fiction action thriller, The Key to Reality, was a #1 new release and has multiple 4- and 5-star reviews. He lives in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina with his wife and children, where he enjoys reading fantastical books, spending time with his family, and cheering on his beloved Carolina Panthers. Also, I had no idea you lived in Charleston. That's a beautiful area. I mean,
I've lived here almost all my life.
wow, yeah, it is gorgeous. I mean, I'm assuming I've only seen the touristy parts, so maybe it's not all pretty, but yeah, wow.
This isn't the best time of year. Like July and August, you might want to avoid it, but the rest of the year, it's absolutely gorgeous here.
Yeah, that's what everyone said. I went down there during, I think it was December. It was like, all the northerners go south for the winter. Yeah. And everyone kept saying, oh, yeah, it's great now. But, come July, we're never leaving our air conditioning, so...
Pretty much. But then again, I haven't shoveled a driveway since 2018, so...
Yeah, that is a perk there. That is a definite perk. And just a quick shout out to all of y'all authors and readers. One of the major shout outs I had about Ted's book, which yes, I did work on his book as one of the editors. You do a great job making technobabble accessible. And that is just, that's not an easy thing all the time, because sometimes you see it so clearly in your head and then you just kind of want to write it the way that you see it. And then readers don't really get it.
I sort of treat it like a magic system because to non-techies it kind of is. So I kind of take the same approach to it that I would to a magic system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good tip right there. I love that, because a lot of times we think of tech as something sort of different, or like, oh, this is science, and so you sort of explain it science in a sciencey kind of way. But yeah, for people who don't understand it, it might as well be magic to them. So that makes a lot of sense.
He's kind of casting his technological spells.
I mean, that's what it feels like when you call tech support sometimes. We're thinking, you're like, did you put the magic tablet, did you plug it into the magic portal in your house?
Well, and when the tech support guy shows up, that's when everything works. So, that's our tech magic.
Okay. That is so, oh my goodness. Or when you call them and suddenly and the problem's not there anymore.
Yep.
But I know as soon as I hang up, it's going to show up again.
Exactly.
You have scared away the gremlins. Absolutely. All right, so let's go right into this. How long have you been writing?
Oh, wow. So creative writing is really something that I've done pretty much my whole life, going back to grade school. Mm-hmm. I actually wrote my first story in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. It was called the It Can Do Anything machine, which was about a boy who had a machine who could turn into anything he needed it to, which isn't great for tension and stakes, but it was cool, and I was 5.
I was going to say wish fulfillment right there.
Exactly.
Nice. So currently, of course, I think, your latest book probably doesn't have a magic box like that in it, probably. So what kinds of books or stories do you write now?
So I write clean science fiction and fantasy. So you won't find any explicit language or huge violence or sex or anything like that in my books. I don't like reading it. I don't like writing it, so I don't.
Okay. All
So,
right.
but mainly, I really feel like I write for people who are a lot like me. People who might feel like they belong on the island of misfit toys.
Yeah.
People who, they don't feel like they measure up. They don't feel like they're enough. They don't feel like they have potential. Maybe they deal with issues of being worthless. And so through my stories, I kind of take my characters through a lot of those things. And what I want to do is kind of point people to a truth. And it's a truth that can lead them to, love and acceptance and purpose and meaning and value and all these things. So that's what I really want to do through my stories.
Absolutely. That is fantastic. And so important to have in this day and age when people just are getting more and more disconnected from themselves, from others. And, we live in a techie age in some ways. And it can be a good thing and a bad thing. What genres or subgenres particularly is this book that you most recently published?
Sure. So Key to Reality is a portal fantasy. So it's a dual world portal fantasy. Some of it happens in a real world. It's a near Earth kind of world, and then the other half happens on a very alien world.
And what inspired this story? I'm just a follow-up question because I'm curious.
Sure. Ultimately, this story kind of came out of a conversation that I had with a really good friend. We were kind of discussing some theological things, and so I kind of got the seed of kind of the theme and the plot, and then it kind of combined with an idea. You got ideas that bump around the back of your head, and for the longest time I'm like, what if somebody wrote The Matrix, but the person who wrote it had a Christian worldview?
Okay.
Instead of the worldview of the people who wrote The Matrix.
Yeah, which is sort of a big conglomeration of about it's it's kind of like a lot of things, sort of like philosophy in a blender there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of combine those two ideas. In fact, there's a character in my novel named Tom Anderson, and I kind of did that as an homage to The Matrix, because Dio's name was Tom Anderson in that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you want to give us a quick sort of description of this book, like your log line or a couple of sentences about what the story is.
Yeah, so it's about an elite cybersecurity analyst who's slowly pulling back this deepening conspiracy, only to discover that everything he thinks he knows about his reality is a lie, and he's the only one who can save it.
So that's some great tension there, and some great anything that's hidden is fantastic for getting people to read, because it's ooh, what's hidden? I think especially again, we live in a techie culture, but we also live in a culture of so much information that everyone's kind of well, of course he found the truth, because the truth is out there for X-Files, or just, there's a general suspicion of what's out there is the common knowledge, and etc. So it is interesting to play into that. What was your favorite part about writing the story, about the experience of having it published, etc.? You can have more than one favorite part if you want.
Yeah. Was so amazing to me. Really, I thought my mom and 5 of her friends were going to buy this.
Yeah.
And then to see all my friends and family come out to support me, to buy the book, to recommend the book. It's just been, it's not often that you get a chance for your community to kind of tell you how they feel about you.
Yeah.
On this side, but
yeah.
But I really did feel kind of that collective hug. So I was just blown away by the response.
Oh,
but
yeah.
From a writing standpoint, I think it was the way that my main character branding kind of emerged as I was going through the different drafts. Like I said, I had a real strong idea of the theme. I had a real strong idea of the plot, but I didn't know Brandon real well at the beginning. I kind of started with plot first rather than character.
All right.
And so as I went through draft after draft and working with critique partners and editors, as he kind of started to emerge, there were seeds in the very early drafts of what I was going to need, but to see that all kind of come together and be refined to where he would meld into the themes and the plot just so beautifully. I love the way it came together.
Oh yeah, that's the best part, when it finally I love it when a plan comes together. And
Yes,
suddenly
exactly.
And suddenly go, this is a book I could give to someone. And they would have
that was my biggest thing. Like, I didn't know if it would sell a bunch, but I wanted it to be worthy of someone reading it. I wanted it to be something that I knew was good as far as we can define that.
Yeah, and that's always a great place to get your books too. That's something I always encourage people here. Like in a previous podcast episode, I just said, I don't wait for reviewers to tell me if a book is good or not. I get all that harsh feedback before publishing.
Yeah.
Some people are finally like, okay, this is good. You're like, okay. Because publishing is hard enough without knowing that you have a solid book, a solid product, or et cetera to put out there.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Now, what was your least favorite part about writing this story, or about the whole experience of having it published?
So probably the hardest part for me was some of that feedback you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Like when I would get something back from an editor or a critique partner, not that anything they said was wrong. In fact, what they said was absolutely right and stuff that really honestly needed work, and I'm so thankful for their honesty and for their willingness to say hard things and things that were hard to read at the time. But reading those, it kind of there's a negative spiral that we can get into really fast as writers, where it's like, oh, I'm a terrible writer and I'm never going to be able to write anything good, and I'm never going to finish this book, and I do finish it, like no one's going to read it, and if they do read it, no one's going to like it, and just woo, down the drain it goes. And so it's very difficult in those moments to kind of recenter yourself and go, okay, I know what's going on here, I know this is the spiral, and to pull yourself out of that. And for me, that's where I really have to lean heavily on my faith and on a belief that I'm meant to do this. And some things that happened over the last couple of years that have given me that. So, that's where I really have to lean on that to pull myself out of that. Because you give somebody something, and there's some part of you that like you just want them to love it. Like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever read. But you need that feedback, and I'm so thankful for my editing team and for my critique partners. Key would not be the book it is today without them.
Yeah, and that's really helpful, and that's something I've mentioned before. Out there, if you're a Christian, which Ted and I both are, we believe your words have eternal value. And that is a reason to keep pushing through them, even when it's like, there are no guarantees of how many readers you're going to have, or who's going to like it, or who's going to dislike it. Like the person you think is going to love it might be like, not my thing. And then someone that you're like, I'm not even sure I'm friends with them, and they love your book, and you're like, oh, okay.
We ultimately write for an audience of one.
And that's the way it really has to be, just to keep yourself sane. Now, all about what your book taught you. What did this story teach you? Wow.
So I am such a different person now. And in fact, if I never sold another copy, like the change in me over writing the course of this book is the win. It really is. I learned a lot about priority and a lot about pruning. So like I said, I had always been, like writing had always been a part of my life, right? But it had always been something I dabbled in. Like I would take a class, or I would go to even a writer's conference, but I was always the kind of writer at that time is like, I wish I had more time to write.
Yeah.
Because, when the writing got hard, when I got one of those critiques, when something would happen, a negative in my writing life, I would run back to what I knew. Like for me, it was gaming. Gaming is something else that had always been a big part of my life. And I was good at it. Like I was really good at gaming.
Oh, okay.
And so I had gotten involved in this this thing called an MMORPG, which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah. But for our listeners' sake, I'm married to a gamer, so I know some of this stuff, and he's got me involved. But for our listeners' sake, what is an MMORPG?
So that stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game, and basically it's where you are killing dragons on the internet with friends.
Yes.
So, but it's a game that just, it takes gobs of time. And so I was going back and forth between, I'd write, I'd game, I'd write, I'd game. And then, I don't know if you remember, but something happened in 2020. And I feel like it made a lot of us kind of go home and rethink our life, to work on a Star Wars quote.
Yes.
And so about the same time, one of my critique partners, a guy named Mako Stewart, he passed away with his book unfinished. So that kind of really motivated me. In fact, the book is dedicated to Mako. That's who the dedication is written to. So I got to 2021, and I got to the point where it's like I'm trying to game and I'm trying to also write this book, and neither one was working. Like I was watching my writer friends, and my writer friends were releasing books, and they were getting agents, and they were like getting sales, and it's like it was really cool. And I was trying to cheer them on, and like I'm on draft 3, like what's going on here? But at the same time, like in that kind of game, like you have to keep playing to kind of keep up your gear and stuff. And so I was falling behind because I was writing, but I wasn't getting my book out because I was gaming. So it eventually got to the point, and my pastor for January was like, look, I think it's time for you to go through a season of pruning. What you're doing is not wrong or evil or anything like that, but it's blocking flourishing in your life. And so, you know, like a good Christian, I fought it for about 3 months. But then I decided, okay, I'm just going to cold turkey. The subscription was gone, uninstalled the game, the whole 9 yards. And in the meantime, I had submitted a piece of flash fiction to a place called Havoc, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but they publish flash fiction. They're fantastic.
Right, amazing.
And I got the acceptance from Havoc. They're like, okay, well, we don't know exactly when we're going to publish you. I'm like, you're publishing me. Like, this is my first yes ever. So I'm like, yeah, sure, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So, you know, you cancel the subscription, but, you know, you still have some time left, right? So I went in to go say goodbye to the people that I was gaming with, the people that, you know, I didn't have any other way of contacting. And I'm like, well, let me just see how much time is left. So my subscription was going to run out December 20th. I'm like, okay, so I went and said goodbye. The next day I get an email from Havoc. By the way, we're publishing your story on December 20th.
Nice.
And it was just, for me, you know, as a Christian, that I kind of put a God angle on it, but for me it was just like, it was God showing me this chapter in your life is ending and this new chapter of writing is beginning.
Yeah.
And so it just, there was a necessity. I couldn't have finished my book if I was still trying to do both. And so something had to be pruned in my life. And not that it was anything evil or wrong, but I had to make a choice, and I had to decide, okay, you know, am I going to do this, or am I just going to play with it?
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly helpful, because that is a decision that a lot of authors have to make between, like, you know, dabbling and really finishing the story. Conversely, like I mentioned, my husband was a gamer, and he's like starting to take it more of a challenge to find things that I like. And so he's found about 4 or 5 games that, depending on my mood, I'll really enjoy. But then I have to say, okay, I mean, we'll do this once or twice a week for, like, you know, date night, but I have to also have this time for writing. This could really take over a lot of my writing time, especially the more complex games. The RPG kind of games, it requires you to keep track of your character and world and all that stuff in the same way that you have to do for a book.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's very wise to, like, figure out, okay, I have to make some decisions here. And I love what your pastor said, but wasn't immediately condemning, saying, well, you're not necessarily doing bad things all the time, but now you got to choose which of these things is the best thing for you right now.
Yeah.
And I think that can be sometimes the harder choice, when it's not like it's not like, oh, should I eat like 3 scoops of ice cream or go on a walk? Okay, you know, probably I don't need to eat quite as much ice cream. This is sort of a no-brainer. But when it's things that are not necessarily bad things, but you have to figure out what the best choice is, I think that really can be challenging for people to figure out.
Yeah. And like I still game. It's just now, like, I choose digital card games. Like I'm big into Marvel Snap right now. You can play that in 5 minutes.
There you go.
So it's like, okay, I played a game of Marvel Snap, and, you know, now I'm ready to get back. And I actually find that kind of helps get my problem-solving brain going a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know, the RPGs and the long games, if I see something that, you know, 45 hour playtime, I can't afford it. Not if I'm gonna write my next book, you know.
So, I mean, I guess that also helps answer the next question, which is how you're going to apply this moving forward. And it seems like a part of that is just, it's not saying no to gaming at all, because, I mean, gaming can be very inspiring, but notice certain kinds of games or certain commitments.
Yeah, I mean, and knowing what for me I can handle. Like, I just have a personality that if I get into something, I'm just going to lose myself in it. You know, and then it's also taking this beyond just this one issue of gaming and really looking at pruning almost on a yearly basis. Like right now, I'm evaluating a couple of other things in my life. There's a critique group. There's a freelance kind of side writing gig that I've got, and I'm evaluating both of those right now to say, are these blocking flourishing in my life? And the freelance thing's a little tough because I'm making money off of that one.
Oh my goodness, no! Making money is so hard when you're like, but it's doing a thing. But is it the best thing with that?
Yeah.
And that was something else of when I chose to like limit my calendar down more with working with clients. And I'm like, but I could fill up my calendar, but I also have books to write, and I also have books for authors that they're requesting they should write, and I literally only have 24 hours in a day here.
Well, and I love how you pivoted to like classes where you could, could take that time and kind of multiply it.
Yeah, and that is one of my focuses moving forward as well. Is just because I want to be able to impact people, but also one person, only so much brain to go around. I think it's just incredibly humbling how finite, it really makes us realize we are as humans with that. So now, time for the random question, which you did not get in advance. You can travel to any place in this book, any place at all. What place do you choose and why?
Oh, in Key?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So without being too spoilery, I would want to go to Aranafur, which is the city of it's the capital city of one of my races. But it is a gleaming, shining city where like the streets are, all the buildings are cut from like amethyst and citrine, and it's just this gorgeous city. And I would love to see that and walk the Grand Promenade and go to the Everlasting Commons, and it's a really, really cool city.
Yeah, it sounds like it must have been fun to come up with and everything to really envision.
Yeah, it really was. I kind of combined a lot of different influences. I borrowed a little bit here, borrowed a little bit there, and kind of came up with something. I always wonder if people, who know these same kind of influence, like, that did that come from that, or did I get that idea from there? So maybe one day I'll write a newsletter about the inspiration for Aranefur, which literally means shining city in Aramaic. Nice.
And of course, you could always try to get some like customized art of it done or things like that.
Oh yeah. If the book really takes off, I definitely would want to do that. Get some of the alien races that are in there. Get some of the art of them as well. So that'd be really cool.
Yep. Well, it has been great having you on the Author Elevate podcast, and it's time for shameless promotion and brag time. Where can our listeners find you online? Do you have any shinies for them, etc.?
Okay, so the best place to find me is on my website at tedatchley.com. You can also, if you're familiar with Linktree, I have a Linktree, which is linktr.ee/TEDAT, TEDAT, which is all my socials, all my books, everything's there. And then if people go to tedatchley.com/join the alliance, you can actually get a free short story prequel to the Key to Reality that is a key moment where the two main characters kind of initially meet and how they kind of met up. And I took a really good class on writing a reader magnet that really helped put that together. Thank you, Janeen.
I am glad that worked out for you. I always love to see people go through those classes, and at the end they actually apply it, and you're like, yes, you did it. It's like that's my teacher heart. It's like, oh, you listened and you applied, and there it is.
Yep,
good
there
job.
it is.
Gold stars.
tedatchley.com/join the alliance. It's free in as much as you have to sign up for my newsletter, and I send that out about once a month where I usually talk about Star Wars. I'll do a book recommendation, and then I'll kind of give an update on my next project.
And I will have those links as well for you. If you're watching on YouTube, it's below in the description. If you're listening to this on my Author Elevate website in the podcast blog post, it's also down there. And of course, Ted did a great job just kind of spelling out where you can go as well. So make sure you check that out if it sounds good. And thank you so much for showing up on the podcast and talking about your book, Ted. It was fantastic having you here.
I've been a big fan of you and Amy, and I love Author Elevate. It's one of the podcasts that always, when I get the notification, that goes right to the top. So I appreciate what you're doing for the author community, and I've learned so much from you. So I appreciate you.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, you have a good rest of your evening.
You as well, and may the force be with you.
And may the force be with you always.